All right, Brian, recovered alcoholic. My sobriety date is February 2nd, 1997. It's important that you have a sobriety date. It's very important that you have one. You know, have that date, own that date. I used to write that date in all my books. Write my name in there and my date. Own that date. That date is yours. It's a special date. It's like another birthday. I just, I am experiencing a lot of pain today, so I'm going to do the best I can. So, um, I kind of forgot what I was doing. Once I was going to record it, and then I totally, you know how that happens sometimes, and you're like, and all of a sudden, you're like,
The
you're throwing a blank. Go ahead,
the
Charlie.
importance of doing it with other people, not doing this on your own.
Oh yeah, thank you, thank you. You know, Again, if you look at the steps, it all says we. Don't say I. It says we, right? Um, I can't do this by myself. I can't. I need every single one of you. That's why you're in my life. You're in my life because if I didn't need you, you wouldn't be in my life, right? You're in my life because I need you, right? I need you to be a part of this fellowship that we're creating. Doesn't it say in the book, we create the fellowship that we crave. So what kind of fellowship do you crave? That's a good question to take in consideration in meditation. What kind of fellowship do you crave? And are you creating that? Man, I want to be around, you know, I just like being in the middle of a bunch of big book thumpers and we're all just, you know what I mean? I don't want to say thumping each other, but we're all like helping each other grow and be the best version of myself that I can be today. That's what we learned from steps 10 and 11, right? To be the best version of myself, no matter what I'm doing, be the best version of myself. That means if I'm in a relationship, I need to be the best version of myself in that relationship. When I'm at work, I need to be the best version of myself at work. That means I'm going to have more patience and tolerance. We talked all about that, about step 4, having more patience and tolerance with employees, more patience and tolerance with people I live with, my spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it might be, right? Be the best that you can be. Be the best dad. Be the best boyfriend. Be the best husband or the best wife. That's what this is about. Be the best that you can be. And are you being the best in all areas? Because we're about to talk about practicing the principles in all our affairs. Well, what is all our affairs? At our home. I was taught a long time ago. I don't know which sponsor told me, but they said you could tell how somebody works the program, how well they work the program by inviting them into your home and see how you treat your wife, see how you treat your kids, see how you treat your animals. Because I tell you what, I've been invited to some people's homes that had years of sobriety, and I didn't want what they had. I didn't like the way they treated, kicking the dog and telling the kids to go. You see, it's all how do you practice this in your home? That's the most important, really. That's the most important. That's where you spend more time than anywhere else, right? Is at home. So how do you practice this in all your affairs with your home? Children. Now we have a way of life. We have 10 step, you know, we have 11 step. We have this 24-hour thing. We start in the morning when we wake up. Throughout the day, agitated or doubtful, I can pause. Then I got that 10 step I can do anytime in there when I'm feeling something. Hey, God, take this away. Remove this from me, right? And then at the end of the day, I do my nightly review and end it with the meditation. So I start my day with meditation, end my day of meditation. And in between, I got this 24 agitated or doubtful. I can pause, indecision, and I got step 10. You see that whole 24 hours, right? From the moment I wake up to the time I go to bed, I'm trying to be the best version of myself. I'm trying to be the best version of myself. Now, it's not so hard to do if you've had a spiritual experience because you want to be like that. I know for me, once I had a spiritual experience, that's what it says. Having had a spiritual experience as the result of these first 11 steps. When I have an experience, and it could be in step 5, it could be 7, it could be 9, it could be any time these experiences could have happened, you know, that's enough to, when I have this experience, man, I want to live this way. Listen, my sponsor said, were you all in on your drinking? Were you all in on your drug using? Are you all in on that shit? Because I was all in and I was going for broke. And I went for broke several times where I lost everything and then built it all back again. Are you all in your recovery? Are you all in with the 12 steps? Because you got to be. If you were all in with your drinking, why are you not all in recovery? Again, half measures avail us nothing. So you need to just jump in here head first, right? And how it works, it says completely give yourself to a simple program. Completely give myself. It means when it says prayer, I pray. You know, it means that when the book tells me to do something, and I'm going to do it because my life depends upon it. My life depends upon me doing this. Man, and if I don't, I'm going to suffer or I'll just die, you know, by taking myself out from drinking. I have to have this experience that completely changes me on the inside. Page 25. Deep and effective spiritual experiences, which has revolutionized my outlook on everything. We've been defeated by self. It says it twice at the end of step 3 and the beginning of step 4, defeated by self. So I like to think that I've been defeated by my ego. So that's what I have to deal with from this point on. If you've already done this work, it's just about you against yourself. It's you against your ego. And the only way I get that right is by being disciplined. Like it says on page, what is that, 88? Right? Undisciplined. So we let God discipline me. I am undisciplined alcoholic by nature. I don't want to work, right? I don't want to do the spiritual stuff, but my life depends upon it. My life depends upon me doing this work. Because if I don't, I'll suffer. And I don't want to suffer. And I don't want none of you to suffer. Because you don't have to. The only thing that's going to get in the way of your spiritual growth is you. I've gotten in my way so much that now I stay the hell out of my way because I don't want to mess up my spiritual growth because I've done it many times. I don't want to do it anymore. You know, I want to share something with you that I suffer. You all know I suffer from chronic pain, and the pain is in my brain. I can't give you a level of pain, but when it's like 9, I'm crying. When it's a 1, I can walk around, I'm fine. Okay. Now, I suffer from this pain, but I know that sometimes I'm in so much pain, I want to cry. Now I get to see my doctor in a couple of days, so I can maybe figure some of that out. I got referrals, I got a bunch of stuff that I know how to take care of myself, and I tried doing it and they stopped me. The the insurance because I was getting anyway. It's okay. Like I know how to take care of myself. But one thing I want to share with you is when I am working with others, when I am doing this workshop, I don't feel any pain. Even if I'm already in pain, like I am in pain now, but I'm not focused on it. I'm focused on sharing from my heart and not from my mind where the pain is. So when I'm sharing, I no longer feel the pain. When I'm working with another alcoholic one-on-one, right? It doesn't matter whether it's at my kitchen table or on Zoom. When I'm working one-on-one with somebody, this is my experience. I don't feel any pain. I don't feel any pain. Now I can't be working with people all the time because I just can't. Okay, I just don't have the energy. I'm tired. I get tired easily and stuff. You know, when I'm not in my head, when I'm not in here, I'm not in my way. It's when I get in here and I stay in here too long, I get tripped up. I trip myself up. You got to remember, man, I'm against myself here. Okay, and when I'm against myself, I am always going to lose. Okay, because it said it in there twice. Self defeated self. So self cannot overcome self. The only way that I can defeat self is with another alcoholic and that power of God, that power of God that it talks about that brings us from death back to life, right? That's the type of power that I want. I want a relationship with that power, not necessarily with God. I want a relationship with that power that I can feel flowing through me, that brings people, that brought me from near death to back to life. That's a power I want to have a relationship with. Some kind of, right? The only way to know how to swim is to jump in the water. Okay? I was so afraid of sponsoring somebody that I'm going to mess them up. And my sponsor, Mark, because I went to Mark because this guy, Brian, came to me and said, "Hey, will you be my sponsor?" And I'm like, "What?" Right? I'm sober 7 months. I don't know anything, right? I don't know. I'm scared. I'm going to mess this guy up. So I go to Mark and go, "Mark, hey, he asked me to be a sponsor, but I think you'll be a better sponsor for him than me." And he goes, "But he asked you. He didn't ask me." Yeah, he got me there. He asked me. You know why Brian asked me? Because we got the same name. Not only that, but I'm wearing an Ozzy Osbourne concert shirt, and that was his favorite band. Huh. Right off the bat, we already had a connection, you see? But he asked me. He didn't ask anybody else. He didn't ask Sean. He asked me. So he saw something in me, whether it was the Ozzy shirt or whatever it was, he wanted me to be a sponsor. And I'm going to tell you, with the first guy I sponsored, I'm going to tell you, I really didn't know what I was doing. But my sponsor, Mark, said, when you follow the book, just follow the book. Just follow the book. You're not going to go wrong. Brian was sharing his fifth step with me. He was sober 2 weeks. Now, this guy, Brian, does show up in here once in a while. Some of you might have met him. He's from Florida. He shows up. He's got 26 years of sobriety. That ain't got nothing to do with me. That first guy I sponsored, I didn't think he was going to stay sober. I was scared. I didn't know. I thought I was going to mess him up. Mark said, "You can't mess him up anymore. He's already messed up himself." Not only that, but you're going to him with a helpful spirit. When you go to somebody with a helpful spirit, what is that? When you go to somebody helpful, being with a helpful spirit, is that pure? Think about the four absolutes. That is as pure as you can get when you want to help somebody and they want to do the work. It's a different story when they're fighting with you and resistance and all that's a different story. But I'm talking about when you find someone that wants this. He's hungry. You ever be with someone that's really hungry? I can't give them enough. I can't give them enough. They don't even want to get off the phone. They want more and more and more. That's how I was. I'm hungry. I want to know about this because this is going to save my life. Not only that, but you just might have the opportunity to save somebody else's with the power of God working through you to get to somebody else. You're just an instrument. That's all you are, is an instrument for God to use you as a channel to get through other people. The Oxford group called these people the Oxford group would call us life changers because our life has changed and then we help change somebody else's. They call it a life changer. Man, I love that. A life changer. What do I need to change? Everything. And how do I even start? You know? Start on step one. It doesn't have to take very long to get through this process. The process it talks about on 25, it doesn't have to take long to get through this process. I'm going to tell you something. And it's going to be coming from my ego, but I'm just going to throw it on this recording because I've recorded over 300 workshops from 1999 to 2008. And we took people, me and Catherine, she'll have 40 years in September. We took people through the steps. We traveled around the United States. We did over 300 workshops. These were one-day workshops where you go through the steps in one day. It's back to basics, back to the 40s. We're talking about, I need something. I need something now. I want this like when I drank, this is how I drank. I throw the top away and I'm chugging. That's the way I'm doing AA. That's the way you do this, man. Chug it. Take this in big gulps because man, I ain't no sipper. So if you're sitting here sipping on these words, right? And just, taking some months to get through this shit because I'm doing it my own fucking way. I want to do this shit my own fucking way. And that's my ego. It's resistance, all of that. When you work with someone that's got all that resistance, that's the ego all over that going, I don't want to do none of this. Because you know what? I've experienced that. I experienced that resistance. I have experienced myself and go, what is this? What is this? Right? If I'm willing to go to any length, that means I am willing to do whatever it takes to get the work done. I've stayed up all night. I don't know anybody else that's done that. Okay, I lied. There was a couple sponsors I worked with where I made them stay up all night working with me because we got to get this done. So if that means I got to stay up 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning to share my fifth step with them, Man, I'm going to do that because I want to be free. I want to be free. It doesn't matter. And guess what? When someone says to me, when someone comes to me and they want to share that with me, I have to be spiritually, I have to be in a place where I need to be spiritually fit to be able to hear whatever I need to hear. To be able to, you see what I'm saying? I need to be in a, so for me, I can't do something like that last minute. It has to be more planned so I can plan me being spiritually fit so I can be in that place to be more useful to others. Last minute, I struggle with that sometimes. You know, it's better to plan that all out. And so I'm going to tell you what I do. I try to, you know, I try to do it where I get together with the sponsee. I try to do a couple hours. We do a couple hour time block, whether we used a couple hours or not, because the first couple of meetings I might not. But when we get into 3 or 4, yeah, we might do 2 or 3 hours, especially step 4. But I try to get together with them weekly. We pick a certain day and we get together weekly. Now I'm going to tell you that, you know, man, I used to work with people all the time. And I don't anymore. I just take one at a time. I just work with one at a time. And so I might have one night a week where I'm working with somebody else. And the other nights, man, I'm single. I could fill the whole thing up. But I don't, because a lot of this is about balance. It's not about filling my whole nights with sponsoring people and sponsorship. It's also for a night where I could sit home and watch TV if I want to, you know, and just chill, you know. Um, I'm just sharing, what I do, what works for me. I'm going to get into the reading in a little bit. We only got 4 pages to read, so that's why I'm kind of putting it off for a second. But what I really want to talk about is social media. When I got sober, there was no social media. Internet was just starting. Think about it. It was 1996 or 97. Internet came out, what, 95? Something like that. So we're not talking, I didn't even have it in my house, and I didn't own a cell phone, you know? So not much technology. I think the next technology I had was probably getting a cell phone and texting somebody. Because when we first got them flip phones, there's no internet on there. I don't remember. I think it was just a text and phone. Now, I'm sharing this with you because after a few years, what was it, 2008? I think I did Facebook. Okay. 2008, I joined Facebook. Now, I created Facebook. First, it was like, keep touch with family because I got a lot of family. And then it just blossomed because while I joined Facebook, I'm traveling with Catherine doing all these workshops and meeting all these people that want to be my friends. Next thing you know, I got 4,000 friends. Now, I'm just sharing that with you. Again, Facebook is a social media. I've been so successful with working on Facebook, with Facebook Messenger, and we're going into groups. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I did. Okay. So in 2020, I joined every group, every AA group that I could think of on Facebook. I would just Google Alcoholics Anonymous, Big Book. I would Google, I'm joining every group I can. So I join about, I don't know, maybe 30 groups, 20 to 30 groups on Facebook. And all I'm doing is I keep the notification on. I'm looking for keywords like I need a sponsor. That can get any. I'm reaching out. I live in a small town or whatever it might be. I need a sponsor online. Boom, that's my cue. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to message him or her or whatever it's going to be. I'm going to message, hey man, I see you're looking for a sponsor, and then I'm going to go back into the thread, and I'm going to go, hey dude, let's chat. So he knows that I threw something at him. Hey, let's chat. And then there's something waiting for him in Messenger, and it's just a simple thing. Hey, I see you're looking for a sponsor. I've been so successful with Facebook doing this that what I did for me during 2020. Now, 2020 was a completely different story because there was so many people coming into AA. It was just we were getting flooded, you know. And the same thing was going to happen in 2021 with the face-to-face meetings once Zoom started closing up. Okay, so we got these 2 waves going on. So what I did is I made it a thing every single day. I had to message 3 people. We're talking 3 new people that I see on Facebook that's reaching out for help. So every day I just needed to message 3. Now I'm telling you what, I can easily do it. I'm at lunch. I'm on my lunch break at work. I got 30 minutes. I can eat my sandwich, and I usually have about 10 minutes left to scroll Facebook. So what do I do in that 10 minutes? I send out 1 message or 2 messages. Now I'm going to tell you, the last message I just sent was 3 days ago. No, it was 4 days ago, and he messaged me yesterday. And now we're getting this report going. So when you message somebody, you got to put something in the feed. Hey, let's chat, or I just throw something. I used to throw something else. I used to throw a lot of things. If someone says, "Hey, I'm looking for a sponsor," I would do these. I have like these little posts that you would put in a comment that are already typed up. Hey, there's a proven method found in the 12 steps in the big book. If you're willing to go to any length, hey, message me. And I used to do all that and just boom, 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 boom. But it's different than reaching out and message someone. If somebody's on Facebook and he's going, I need some help. Help, I need a sponsor. I want you to read through that thread. Read through that thread and tell me how many people are telling him what to do instead of someone saying, grab my hand. Grab my hand. That's what I do. Grab my hand. Reaching out. Dude, let's chat. Then I send him a message and I go to him. Okay, so I saw there was 200 people that commented. How many people reached out to you? 99% of the time, he goes, you're the only one. I'm the only one out of 75,000 people in that group. I'm the only one that messaged him. That's how important it is. That's how important. I did 3 people. 3 people a day I would message. Sometimes they don't respond because it gets hidden into the other folder. But eventually, I've even had people message me 2 years later. 2 years later. Yes, I'm still looking for a sponsor. I'm like, dude, that was 2 years ago. What have you been doing? Been drinking. Because nobody reached out to him. It's our responsibility. Now that we're on step 12, it's all 6 of us that are in here, and even more so the people that aren't. It's our responsibility to carry this message to the ones that are reaching out. What's the AA response? AA, what is that? I am responsible when anyone, anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA to be there, and for that, I'm responsible. So when I see somebody reaching out, I have the responsibility to reach back out to them because nobody else is doing it. So I took that responsibility on. So today, I don't message 3 people because I'll get real busy really quickly and I just don't have the energy to do that. So I just kind of, but I'm telling you, when I was in the middle of this mix, I was doing 3 people a day. 3 people a day. And then eventually I might end up, because here's the thing. If I do 3 people a day, I message, and we'll do 5 days. We'll just go Monday through Friday. That's 15 people I messaged, right? It's always like this percentages. I'm always this guy. I'm like a mathematician with numbers. I'm always like, what's the bottom line, right? So there's always going to be a percentage of people that I message. There's going to be a percentage of people that respond. And then there's going to be a small percentage of people that want to do the work with you. So I remember in 2020, I would start so many people on step 1. Do you know how many people I would get past step 5? 75% wouldn't even make it to step 5. 75%. So a quarter of whatever I started out with, a quarter would make it all the way through. Now you have to understand that people, you're reaching out to sick people. They're not always going to respond. Send them one message. If they don't respond, it's going to be in the other folder. There's no reason to send a second message. It doesn't matter how long it's been. So I get a bunch of these things in Messenger where there's a whole bunch of people that I message and they haven't responded yet. And I just let it sit there. I let it disappear. It's the only thing that I can do with somebody on social media is just send them a message. I can't do anything else. It's up for them to find it. But I guarantee it, once they find it, they message me right away, even if it's been 2 years. They message me right away. Yep, I'm definitely looking for a sponsor. And the first thing I say is, do you got a big book? If he says no, then I'm going to say you're going to need to buy one or you can download the PDF. PDF is very difficult to work with. It just is. I don't like it. I have to keep expanding it and, so I've done it myself. So I know the difficulties with working with stuff like that. That's why I prefer to have a book I can highlight. I can take notes. Not only that, I'm going to be honest with you. I hated reading. I hated school. I just hated it all. I hated the little spelling tests we had to do and all the math. I just hated school. I hated reading. I hated reading out loud. I just hated it. And if I had to read out loud, I'm sick. Or I'm not going to school. I'm not even going to go to school that day. Okay? Too much anxiety. In a few minutes, I'm going to be reading to you. To me, that blows my mind. I could barely read. When I came here, I would stumble with how it works. Forget about the preamble, the anonymity. I couldn't even say that word. Now, I'm sharing all that with you because, remember we talk about prayer and meditation, right? We talk about living in an unconscious state. And then through prayer and meditation and doing step 5, we start to wake up. We start to wake up. That's why it says haven't had an experience, right? A spiritual experience. That means by the time I get to step 12, I'm awake. I'm awake. I am more conscious at step 12 than I am unconscious. Wherever that shift happened, remember we talked about the numbers, right? I think it was in step 3 I talked about that, or maybe step 4 about Carl Jung, 10% conscious, 90% unconscious. Okay. Now I lived in an unconscious state as long. I wanted to live in that state as long as I could. I liked being in that state when I was drinking, right? Today I don't like being on. I don't like anything happens unconsciously at all. And when it does happen, I'm like, whoa, right? Because sometimes we just operate on default. It just goes to that default setting automatically. And when something like that happens, I take a look at that. I have to really take a look at that and go, okay, was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? Did I act on automatic? Did I act, as we start to mature in our sobriety, sometimes you're going to do things automatic that will be good because you're so used to doing it automatically that you start to change. That's why I always have to look at that stuff when I do something unconsciously and I'm unaware of it. I have to look at that and go, nowadays I laugh at that. Nowadays I can laugh at myself because it's nothing like it used to. Unconsciously, I would tell someone to go fuck off. Sorry about my language, but that's the truth. Consciously, I do it in my head and go, I don't want to say that. I'm not going to say that. I don't care if I'm mad. I'm not going to say that because I'm better than that today. I just don't, right? I want to be the best version of myself, which means sometimes I just need to go, and just not say anything. Just like that. I'm telling you, that's how I would stop myself. I would go, and she'd say, what are you going to say? I was going to say like the B word, and I didn't. I'd be like, nothing. And she'd be like, I knew what you were going to say, but you didn't say it. It's improving. And that's how I improved. That's how I improved being in a relationship is I would stop because I didn't like getting in trouble. I didn't like having to make amends. That's why I'm saying it's more important. It's so important to practice these principles in your home. I didn't always do that. I didn't always do that. And when my wife said, my wife said something to the extent with, I can't remember what it was, something like, do you change or something? And I just said, bye. You know, I'm 3 years sober and I'm still acting like a jerk, right? I didn't know this whole thing about trying to be the best version of yourself. I've made lots of mistakes in relationships to the point where I just lost my relationship with my wife, my ex-wife, and my kids. And I just let it go and I didn't even care. But like I did. But I was so wrapped up in the ego and so wrapped up in her hurting me and I ruined my whole family. I did that in sobriety. I'm sharing that with you because it's important to practice these principles. There was a time when my kids said, I hate you, Dad. And today they call me on the phone and they say, I love you, Dad. It's important that I share that because I'm sober and they know that I'm sober, you know? I want to ask, because I can't remember, I think it was page 100 where we stopped at. If anybody remembers, I didn't mark it in my book, but I think it was page 100. If someone can just confirm. I think I finished it up with both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. I think that's where I follow the dictates of a higher power. You're presently living in a new and a wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstance. I believe that's where I stopped. Is that anybody confirm? Yeah, Chris, you're nodding your head. Was that where I stopped? I'm just asking if that's where I stopped because I can't remember. If it is, just give me a thumbs up.
And that's where I have it marked.
You have it marked on page 100?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to start on page 100. It's the second paragraph. Anytime I say a paragraph, if I say first paragraph, that's the first indentation. So as you can see on page 100, the first paragraph says both you and the new man. Second paragraph, when working with the new man. And that's where I want to start. Okay. So when working with the new man, of course, I want you to say, when it says man, it means woman too. When working with a new man and his family, again, remember what I said about a family? I just never worked with the family. You should take care not to participate in the squirrels. The thing with the family is I just stay out of the drama. Just stay out of the drama. Whatever they got going on, whatever. Usually people come in here They don't come in here and everything's going well. I came in here and I was beat up. My wife wanted a divorce, like everything. Nothing. I had absolutely nothing going for myself. Maybe my job, and I had a car. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have any money, you know. So, it says, wait, you should take care not to participate in the squirrels. Again, if there's some kind of drama, stay out of the drama, man. Always keep a neutral position. I just keep a neutral position, and I don't engage in any drama or none. They got drama, that's their problem, not mine. I just stay out of it. They'll figure that shit out. Once we get into the steps a little later, once we get further into the steps, then I can start using steps, stuff for them to work on their relationships, like inventory, and making amends and stuff like that. But it says right there, I got to stay out of their quarrels, right? You may spoil the chance of being helpful if you do. Okay? There's that word do. I did highlight a do, but it's more of a do not, right? It's a do not participate in their quarrels. Man, stay out of the drama. But urge upon a man's family that he has been a very sick person. Man, I'm going to underline that word, sick person. Okay? Now, what I want you to remember always, you're working with somebody sick. Never forget that you're working with somebody sick. Why is he not returning the call? Right? Why is he not at the meeting? Because he's sick. You got to remember. Just remind yourself he's a sick person, right? We're sick trying to get well, right? He has been very sick and should be treated accordingly. You should warn against arousing resentment. Warn. Look at that. That's warning, isn't it? You should be warned against. So I'm going to warn this new guy, against resentment, jealousy, right? You should point out that his defects of character are not going to disappear overnight. Show them that he has entered upon a period of growth. I always like to think the beginning is kind of like adolescence, because I make mistakes too, just like I did when I was a teenager, but I don't make those mistakes anymore. Show them that he's entered upon a period of growth. Ask them to remember when they are impatient, the blessed fact of their sobriety. There's that word impatient. Remind me again when they are impatient. You know how important it is that we have to have patience. It goes all the way back to step 4, right? Patience and tolerance. Now it's reminding us again, we got to have patience. We got to have patience with the new people because they're sick, right? If you've been successful in solving your own domestic problems, whatever those might be, tell the newcomer's family how that was accomplished. Now, if I've been successful in solving any type of domestic problem, then I'm going to share that. I'm just going to share whatever I've been able to be successful in my sobriety, not just staying sober, but whatever I've been successful in finances, I'm going to share that if there's a place for me to share that with them, In this way, you can set them on the right track without becoming critical of them. The story of how you and your wife settled your difficulties is worth any amount of criticism. Now, what I've shared recently was that I had a sponsee that was having a difficult time with his relationship. And it reflected upon me as if I saw myself in him. And I saw the route that I took where I just got frustrated and I said, screw you, I'm out of here. And I saw him going down that same path, and I was able to stop him and go, hey, listen, let's do an inventory. Let's look at this. I don't want you to make the mistake that I made. I don't want you to make those same mistakes. Today, I can say I don't live with regret from those mistakes that I made, when I had a family. Okay. But sometimes I gave that up. I gave that up. I'm the one, that walked away. I'm the one that walked away. And I had good reasons to walk away. But when I'm working with somebody, right, and they got issues, I know for me that it's just time. When I have issues, it's time for me to look at inventory. It's time for me to look at myself. When I'm having any type of conflict with anything, think about page 52, problems with personal relationship. It's the number one thing. I got to use that page 52 every day to see where I'm at spiritually. If I'm struggling, man, I need to, dive real hard in that spiritual stuff. If I'm just struggling with relationships, I need to get my relationship with myself right. And I do that by spending time with God, alone in meditation. I don't know about any of you, but I know when I have a problem, when I have a domestic problem and I'm overthinking it, because that's just what I do. I like to overthink it, and I mean, I want to do this right, and I sometimes create more problems for myself. I sometimes create more problems for myself because I'm fighting against myself. I'm not fighting against her. It's me that I'm fighting with. It's me against my ego. But it always seems like I'm fighting with her. Now, today, there is no her, which is a good thing. So there's no fighting. Anyway, I just want to make sure that's in there. But I'm going to tell you that, you know, I know I've made mistakes. I'm not perfect. I'm human, just like I'm human, just like all you. The only difference is I got 28 years of sobriety, and the only thing I've done in those 28 years is not drink. I've done all kinds of. I knew when I was going to be a jerk to my wife, and I was a jerk anyway. Today, I know when I'm about to be a jerk, and I don't. I stop myself. And I'm talking about a jerk like that could be just some words, nasty words. It could be just flipping somebody off, whatever it might be. When I mean flipping somebody off, you all know what I mean. I know that there's other people, you're from different countries, so I just want to make sure everybody knows when you're flipping somebody the middle finger, that's a negative gesture though, isn't it? And usually it implies I got some kind of anger and I want to fight you or something. You see what I'm saying here? So I'm sober 3 years. I get divorced. I'm at divorce court. And you know what I do? I give my ex-wife everything she wanted. How much money you want? You want full custody? I'm giving you everything I want because I'm flipping it now. I want to be the good guy because I've been the bad guy. Now I'm going to be the good guy and I'm going to give her everything I want because that's what my ego wants me to do. Because my ego thinks if I give her everything she wants, then she's going to let me see the kids whenever I want. That's the ego. The reality was that didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. You know, but my ego wanted me to walk away. My ego wanted me to walk away. I don't have any other. I wish I had good sponsorship at the time that said, "Wait a minute, what are you doing? Right? Pray about this. What are you doing?" You know. Sometimes someone grab me by the shirt and go, "Dude, what are you doing? Wake up! What are you doing?" Right? Sometimes I want to grab people in here, not in this meeting, but I want to grab people and go, "What are you doing? Wake up! Wake up! What are you doing?" When I work with others, my life changes, not theirs. That's the truth. When I'm working with others, my life changes. When I'm sitting here and I'm reading this to you, sometimes I have an experience. I got to grab a pen. I got to grab a highlighter because this stuff can happen at any time where I can have an experience. And if it can happen to me at any time, it can happen to you at any time. Keep going to these things. Keep going to other workshops. Keep going to these things. You're going to keep having experience. The more you go to stuff like this, the more experiences you're going to keep having. The longer that I'm sober and the longer that I'm applying these steps into my life, the more that I'm expanding my God consciousness up here. Remember I talked about in step 10, right? We're just tapped into this God conscious. Step 11 allows us to expand that through prayer and meditation. It allows that God consciousness to expand. And that God consciousness is that higher plane of thinking that it talks about in 11, right? It's a higher plane of thought, that God consciousness, a higher plane. I want to live in that place as long as I can. But reality is, the outside world just takes me out of that. Bill talks about that in his story. He talks about having an experience, and then he talks about it just going away. It just going away. First he goes, it goes away by outside things, and then he goes, it went away mostly because what's inside of me, because of the ego. The only way I can defeat the ego is I have to have another alcoholic, but I also got to do that prayer and meditation. When I'm in that meditation, when I'm in that safe place, we talked about in step 10, the enter the world of spirit. And I talked about, I think last week, where I go to this place where it's safe and protected in here. This is all safe. This is my meditation place. When I go sit somewhere, I go inside. It's safe and protected. Nobody can come in here. No one's allowed in my sacred space in here. Not only that, but I couldn't even allow anybody in because there's no way I can let you in here. This is, you understand, this is my spiritual space. It's where I'm safe and protected, right? That's where I do all my spiritual growth, when I'm in there. And guess what? When I'm in this space, the ego is not in there. The ego is not allowed in that space. So when I'm in that space and I'm all spiritual and I come out of that space and I'm all spiritual and from meditation and I'm all like peaceful and calm, that's that emotional sobriety. That's having that emotional sobriety. Because when I come out of that meditative space, right when I come out of it, that's when my ego is right sized. My ego is right sized. The more I do prayer and meditation, I'm trying to get that ego right sized. I'm always thinking I got to reduce it, right? I always think I got to reduce it. I personally don't really expand my ego too much on the other side, like grandiose. Now I might do it. It'll come out to me when I said, like earlier, when I said, oh, I did 300 workshops, and that's that ego coming out, that little grandiose. That doesn't come out so much. Most of the time for me, the ego's on the other side where I'm beating the crap out of myself, right? And I'm feeling sorry for myself because what's physically going on. And that's what I deal with today. What's physically going on with me with the pain. And I have a tendency, I like to beat myself up, right? I take out the hammer and I start pounding myself, you dummy or whatever. And then I realize what I'm doing and I go, God, take this away. And I stop immediately what I'm doing. I stop because I wouldn't put up with that from anybody else. Why am I putting up with it for myself? I got to learn. I had to learn to treat myself like I'm my best friend and stop beating myself up in here when I do something wrong. I want to kick myself to the ground in my own head, right? The world's beat me up and I'm in the fetal position in the middle of my living room and I'm kicking myself going, you dummy. You see how it's in my mentally, right? The whole world's beat me up. And then I'm going to play the ego and be on top of that and go, see, you're a loser and all that. And I'm just going to kick myself a few more times in the head. I stopped doing that. I stopped being my worst nightmare. I stopped being the guy beating myself up. And now I'm my friend. Now I'm my friend. I learned to love myself. That was hard to do. That was hard to do. It was hard to spend time alone with myself. But you know what it says in step 5? We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. It starts to happen. You know what started to happen? I started to like myself instead of hating myself. I started to like myself. And I started thinking, you know what? You're not such a bad guy after all. The ego wants to think I'm the worst, right? I'm not such a bad guy. I'm going to go back to the book, page 100. It's the last paragraph. Assuming you are spiritually fit. Now, that's what I've been talking about a lot, about being spiritually fit, right? Following this program, being disciplined. When I'm disciplined to steps 10 and 11, I'm going to be spiritually fit. Now, what's going to happen? It says when I'm spiritually fit, we can do all sorts of things. There's that word do, can do. I wrote do. Now it's telling me instead of don't, now it's telling me things I can do. I can do all sorts of things alcoholics are not supposed to do. You know what one of those things are? I can go to a bar. I've been to a bar or a pub, and I've gone there to shoot pool because someone asked me to go shoot pool. And I said, I don't usually go to bars. I don't drink. Like, they know I don't drink. But I'm like, yeah, we'll just play one game and leave. Okay, fine. It doesn't bother me. I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel like I'm in this, I shouldn't belong here or any of that. I just went there and shot pool. He bought me a soda, everything. He didn't drink. We were just there shooting pool. We don't have a place where you can go anywhere else and shoot pool other than a pub. We don't have those here, and I was there for a different reason. I was there to talk with him and to have a game of pool. I didn't see what the big deal was. And I left. I didn't feel tempted because it says, like, when I'm spiritually fit, I can do all sorts of things like that. But if you're not spiritually fit, you better not even try it. If you're not spiritually fit, don't even try to work with a newcomer either. You got to be spiritually fit, be spiritually fit to be in this position that I am, to be able to, to conduct this workshop. I got to be spiritually fit. It says, people have said we must not go where liquor is served. There's that word must. We must not have it. We're going to go through a whole bunch of must. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In the next paragraph. Must not have it in our homes. Must shun friends who drink. Now, as I'm reading this, you might think some of these might be a little funny, right? I got to shun friends that drink, right? Because I'm worried that I might drink, right? We must avoid moving pictures which show drinking scenes, right? We're getting pretty pathetic now. I can't even watch TV, right? We must not go to bars or pubs. Our friends must hide their bottles if we are to go to their house. Does that sound like ego? Ego, yeah, you got to hide the bottles from me. You got to do this if I'm going to come over and all this, right? Are we doing lives on life's terms at this point? No, no, right? You mustn't think or be reminded about alcohol at all. You mustn't think about it, right? Is that really, really, that's going to stop me from thinking about it when you tell me, oh, I must not, right? Our experience, that means your experience, right? Does your experience show that this is not necessarily true? Does your experience show that? Because mine does. My experience shows this isn't true. We meet these conditions every day. Those are conditions that we have to meet, right? We can meet these conditions every day. An alcoholic who cannot meet them. So he's saying we meet these conditions every day. All those things we must not do. An alcoholic who cannot meet them still has an alcoholic mind. There's something wrong with his spiritual status. Okay? He's not spiritually fit. When I'm spiritually fit, I can do all sorts of things that I'm not supposed to. His only chance for sobriety would be someplace like a Greenland ice cap. But I bet there's alcohol in Greenland. And even there, an Eskimo might show up with a bottle of scotch and ruin everything. You see, he's talking about going to Greenland. We're going to a place that's least populated. It's not green there. It should be called Iceland because it's probably 80% covered with ice. Okay? Now, he's going to go. Think about this. You're going to the most sordid place on earth to hide from alcohol. And the Eskimo shows up and just ruins everything. You thought you could go as far as you could to get away from it. And you see, it's everywhere. We got to learn to live with it. You see what I'm talking? Because it's just everywhere. It's not going to stop because we don't drink anymore. They're not going to close up the pubs. They're not going to close up the liquor stores because we don't drink anymore. We got to learn to live life on life's terms. You know, ask any woman who has sent her husband to a distant place on the theory he would escape the alcoholic problem. Think about that. Let's send him to treatment. He comes back and he drinks again, right? In our belief, any scheme of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield the sick man, there's that word, the sick man, that's twice already, from temptation is doomed to failure. You can't shield me from temptation. Because when I'm tempted, I'm going to drink unless I'm spiritually fit and had an experience. Then the obsession's gone, right? So I can't shield it. If the alcoholic tries to shield himself, he may succeed for a time. I'm going to share a couple experiences here. Shield himself from alcohol. Man, I've known people that I've sponsored and they get into a little bit doing some of the work. And next thing they know, man, I am just going to, you know what, dude, I'm behind in bills. I'm just going to work. I'm going to work a lot of overtime for a while. And I just think just working is going to help me stay sober. And people will stay sober 4, 5, 6 months, working. Next thing you know, they're messing, dude, I'm all messed up. I said, did you really think that working is going to be the same thing as having an experience? A spiritual experience or a psychic change? No, because I'm just waiting for him to come back. Now, some people stay sober like that. They might not be real alcoholic. You know? This isn't about shielding myself from temptation. It's about being spiritually fit and going anywhere, as long as I got a purpose. And if I try to shield myself, like it says here, he may be successful, but usually winds up with a bigger explosion than ever. I just want to refer something back. Do you remember in that? It was in the relapse. I want to say it's in More About Alcoholism, where it talks about, you got all this willpower, and then you finally relapse with still less control. Do you guys remember that in More About Alcoholism, where it talked about the relapse? Now it's talking about the same thing, right? Alcoholic who tries to shield himself may succeed for a time, but he eventually winds up with the bigger explosion than ever. And why do you think that is? Because he didn't change. He didn't work the steps. He didn't have a spiritual experience. Again, if you got a drunken horse thief, you sober him up, you still got a horse thief, right? We have tried these methods. These attempts to do the impossible have always failed. So our rule is to avoid a place where there is drinking, if We have a legitimate reason for being there. So my reason for being there was to go shoot pool with a friend because it was the only place to shoot pool. And it didn't bother me. Not only that, but it was in the middle of the day. It wasn't like at night where I went and it was like happy hour or something. You know, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We were the only ones in there. You see? And then it says that includes bars or pubs, nightclubs, dances, receptions, weddings, even planned whoopee parties. To the person who has had experience with the alcoholic, this may seem like tempting providence, but it isn't. You will note that we made an important qualification. Therefore, ask yourself on each occasion. This means when you're going someplace where there's alcohol, and all those places they met, whoopee parties or weddings, whatever that, you have to ask yourself these questions. Have I any good social, business, or personal reason for going to this place? Now, it's a question. I have it highlighted in purple. I think some of these questions are just great questions to sit in meditation and answer them and go, wait, you got a legitimate reason for being there? Yes, I did because I was meeting a friend there to shoot pool. Okay. Now, I'm 28 years sober. I wouldn't attempt to try to do that when I was a couple years. You know, you got to have a good reason and you got to be spiritually fit. Next question. Am I expecting to steal? This is the biggest question. Am I expecting to steal a little vicarious pleasure from the atmosphere of such places? Right? Steal some of that little vicarious pleasure from that atmosphere. If you answer these questions satisfactory, you need have no apprehension. Go or stay, whichever seems best. But be sure you are on solid spiritual ground before you start. It can't be any clear cut right there. Solid spiritual ground before you start. And that your motive in going is thoroughly good. Do not highlight it in the margin, do not think of what you will get out of the occasion. Think of what you can bring to it. But if you are shaky, you had better go work with another alcoholic instead. Or don't even go. That's what they're saying. Don't go. Go work with another alcoholic if you're shaky. If you're shaky, don't put yourself in that situation, where you're going to get hurt. What do? We don't place ourselves in positions anymore where we can be hurt. We stop doing that at step 3. We're not doing it anymore. Okay? That requires you to think a little bit ahead. It does. But through prayer meditation, we're sharpening. By doing daily prayer meditation, we're learning to sharpen our intuition. And that's what's going to save us. Because they're going to go, oh, wait a minute, I shouldn't do that. Right? Intuition. Why sit with a long face in places where there is drinking? Signing about the good old days. If it is a happy occasion, try to increase the pleasure of those there. If it's a business, go and attend your business enthusiastically. If you are with a person who wants to eat in a bar, by all means, go. We're talking about being spiritually fit. I've eaten. You know what? The first time I had a counselor when I was younger, and she came to visit me because I was struggling. Okay? I was struggling staying sober. She came to visit me, and she said, let's go to eat. And I'm like, I'm at this point, I'm kind of like, I think I'm homeless. I can't remember if I'm homeless or if I'm, I'm in a bad way. And she goes, let's go eat. And she takes me to a pub. And I'm like, I know she don't drink, right? And I'm thinking she's just screwing with me. But she just wanted something to eat. She didn't care. She's sober 30-something years. She just wants something to eat. She don't pay no attention. So I go with her. And I'm all nervous. I don't want to sit at the bar. I'm sitting at the table, And she's like, we're just ordering food. Calm down, right? I'm having an anxiety attack. Like I shouldn't belong in here. And she's like, it's okay. She handed me a 37 or 36-year trip. She took her chip out of her pocket and gave it to me. This is my counselor. And she said, if I can do it, you can do it. I don't have the chip anymore. I don't even know where it is. Okay. But man, that moved me. And she's been sober long and I've been alive. And she said, let's go to a meeting. And I said, okay. And I went to a meeting with her. And I'm going to tell you, my ego was in full swing at that meeting because somebody was coming back after relapsing of 18 years. And I said, see, it doesn't work. You see, that's my ego, But I just wanted to share that experience with you, because she was very instrumental in my beginning. you know, bringing me to a meeting and saying, you see that guy? Don't be like that guy. You don't ever have to pick up a drink ever again. Even if you want to, you don't have to. That's crazy. Even if you want to, you don't have to, you know? I wanted to share that, you know, because it's about going places, going to a bar, going to a pub and eating. Now, I'm going to tell you, I went to a place called Olive Garden. I don't know if anybody are familiar with Olive Garden. Chris might be, but it's like an Italian restaurant, and a lot of times you got to, you know, it's like what's the word I'm looking for? It's really good. So it's always like packed. So when you go in there, you got to get this little thing with the lights on it, and then when they, you know, then when the thing beeps with the lights, then it's your turn to go. You follow what I'm saying? You know, I'm not sure where I was going with that. Um, oh yeah, it was a person about. So one time we go, I'm with the girl and we're starving. We're starving. And he goes, oh, it's like an hour wait. But if you shit at the bar, we can get you right now. Shit, let's sit at the bar, right? I'm starving. Let's go to the bar. So I'm sitting at the bar and I place my order and I'm looking around. I'm looking at all these bottles and I've been sober so long that I don't even recognize any of it. I don't recognize. Yeah, I might recognize like the beers and stuff, but all the liquor, I just don't recognize any of it. And I've never had any of it. And I have no temptation to even try it, you know? But I want to tell you, it was the first time that I've ever sat at a bar and not drank. But I was with somebody sober. It's somebody I was in a relationship with. And it just wasn't a big deal. It really wasn't a big deal at all. For a moment when I first sat there, I was like, whoa, I'm at a bar. And then I'm there to eat. And then we left. It just wasn't. And yeah, there was a guy a couple seats over drinking, getting drunk, but it just didn't bother me. It just, you see, when you're spiritually fit, you can do stuff like that. It just doesn't even bother me. Doesn't even bother me. That's why I wanted to mention that, because that's what we can do when we're spiritually fit. We can go and do these things, and it's no big deal. We're there to eat, socialize, and leave. You know. I forgot where I stopped. Okay. If you are with the person who wants to eat at a bar, by all means go. Let your friends know they are not to change their habits on your account. I have friends that know that I don't drink, and these friends, you know, they're truck drivers or people I've worked with. They're not in AA, but they know I don't drink. And I know that I've gone to rock concerts with them and they drink and they don't drink. We go to concerts together. They don't drink because they respect my sobriety. I told them, you can if you want, I'll drive. But they don't, you see, because they respect my sobriety, you know? So I can do all these. I've gone to a lot. I've gone to a lot of heavy metal concerts, a lot, like a lot. And I've stayed sober. I'm talking festivals and taking people that sponsees that like the same music, and we go together. And we're having a meeting in the middle of the concert, you know, because one of us, someone's, you know, got an urge, and we work through it. We help each other. We look out for each other. But I've done all these things, you know, and beautiful experiences because I'm sober. And I remember, I'm going to tell you, I went to an Ozzy concert. It was Ozzy's birthday. He was 40 years old. It was 1988. It was December 4th, 1988. It was in New Haven, Connecticut. I don't remember shit of it. I don't remember anything because I got so messed up. You know, I remember the opening act. That's it. That's not the type of concert I want to pay $50 for and have no memory. You see? That was the moment I was like, whoa, what's going on, right? You know? It says, oh, while you were drinking, you were withdrawing from life. This is huge. While I was drinking, I was withdrawing from life little by little. Is that true for all of you? Because it's true for me. That's why I said I withdrew little by little. Now you're getting back into the social life of the world. Don't. There's that word don't. Highlight it. Don't start to withdraw again just because your friends don't drink. Don't start to withdraw. Get out. Enjoy life. Go to conventions. You know, Sean's about to fly in an airplane and go to 2 different countries he's never been to. Go to conventions. Go and experience this. Now, I'm just saying, all of you, you got a convention? Well, go and be a part of that. Experience that. There's tons of them. They're going on all the time. You just got to look. They just had one, I think, in the UK. You know, they're happening all the time. Go find them out, search them out, go be a part of that. You know, experience that. That's part of getting back into the social life, right? Not only that, I learned how to dance in sobriety, and I still dance like a weirdo, and that's okay. You know, I like doing that little with the leg moving and, you know, whatever. You know, so I learned how to dance in sobriety. You know what? Yeah, I guess when I was drinking, I was kind of, yeah, it was kind of a dance, but usually it crashed into something, right? You know, I went to my first sober dance. I was scared, nervous. I'm worried about people are going to look at me and all that. And I had a buddy of mine, friend, and he goes like this: no one's going to pay any attention to what you're doing. I'm like, bullshit. And he goes, watch. And he does one of these things where he's like, it's the Q-tip. And he's doing all these different things. And he's calling it all this different. And he's doing that with his leg. People are laughing, but nobody's really paying attention. And that's what he showed me. He said, nobody cares how you move or whatever. Nobody even cares if you just stand there and just do this. Nobody even cares. And that's what he told me, was nobody cared. And guess what? Then I just started moving around and nobody cared. You see? Now, I'm going to tell you, I do have rhythm and I can dance, but I wanted to show you that I can't, so get you all laughing. Okay. You know, Sean and I are going to be at a dance at the International, and it will be the biggest dance either one of us have ever been to. Now, I might dance in front of Sean, but I guarantee he'll be laughing and laughing. He'll probably never forget I'm going to be laughing. Because you know what? I used to be so concerned about everybody looking at me and self-conscious that now it doesn't matter, because that's what sobriety's done for me. It doesn't matter if I look like a fool or not. I'm there to have a good time and just be, I'm there to have a good time with all my sober friends that I haven't even met yet. And that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if I make a fool out of myself or any of that. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter if I dance like Steve Urkel, right? None of that matters. It just doesn't, you know? Get out. Get out. Stop. Don't withdraw. Get out in life. Go and do those things. Go to those conventions. Go to the sober dances. Go and experience that stuff. Go and experience it. Get back into life. Not withdrew. You withdrew enough. You know? I'm going to read that last line one more time. Don't start to withdraw again just because your friends don't drink. Your job. We got a job. Remember we had in step 3? We got a new employer. We got a new boss. God. Now it's telling me it's going to give me my job. Your job now is to be in a place where you may be of maximum helpfulness to others. Again, that goes all the way back. What is it? Step 9, right? I think we read something like that in step 9, right? To be helpfulness to others, right? No, my job is to be in a place where I can be of maximum helpfulness to others. Now, I ask God in my morning meditation, God, what can I guide me to where I need to go? In my morning meditation, I would say, God, guide me to where I need to go so I can be maximum helpless to others. That's part of my morning guide. Guide me to where I need to go. So never, highlight never, put it in the margin. Never hesitate to go anywhere if you can be helpful. Never hesitate. That means a bar too. Never hesitate to go anywhere if you can be helpful. You should not hesitate to visit the most sordid spot on earth. The more sordid spot. We're talking like in the middle of an ice cap, right? The most sordid spot you can think of on earth. At such an errand. Keep on the firing line of life. The firing line of life, I like to think of in the firing like I'm down in the trenches and I'm working with the newcomers. That's that firing line of life, right? I'm down there working with them, doing this work. So keep on the firing line of life. And with these motives, God will keep you unharmed. Again, that firing line of life is me working with people one-on-one. Many of us keep liquor in our homes. Now, I do not. My home is my safe place. My home is always going to be my safe. The day I got sober, there was no more alcohol allowed in my home. I don't care if the wife likes it or not. There's no more alcohol. The day I got sober, that was it. No more. Now, I have met exceptions to the rule by dating girlfriends that drank, and I'll never do that again. Okay. So I just want to throw that out there because my home has to be my safe place. What other place is going to be safe? I got to make it my home. That's where I practice these principles in all my affairs. My safe place has to be my home. It has to be. There's been many times where I've gone to work and I'm coming home from work and I'm running home to my safe place. So yeah, I felt like that. Like I was like, I need to get to my safe place. I'm going to be okay. I just got to get home. you know? I'm going to keep reading down 102. Again, it said many of you keep liquor in the homes. Again, when I got sober, I don't do that. This was written in 1939. Maybe they did that. I don't. It's 2025. I don't keep any liquor in my house. There's absolutely no reason for it. You know, we often needed to carry green recruits through their severe hangovers. I do want to say that years ago, in order for me to get someone in detox, we had to go and buy them a bottle of something. And guess who the newcomer was, and the guy that was nominated to go into the liquor store and get the liquor. You know, I'm sober 6 months. My sponsor's driving, Brian. You know, Dean's got to be partly buzzed because they're not going to take him in detox. And I need you to go in there and buy a 40 ouncer so he can drink it. We got an hour ride. He's got to drink it. So by the time he gets there, he's kind of buzzed and they're going to take him. But they won't take you if you're sober. I'm telling you the truth. So there's been many times where I had to go into a liquor store and buy a 40, which is, you know, a big one, right? You know, it's beer. Whatever, I don't even remember what I spent, $4 or $5, whatever it was, $3, whatever it was minimal to get him in treatment. Now I've done that 1,000 times. And within the first year, I'm going to the liquor store, right? I remember being worried about people seeing me, but I didn't because my sponsor's in the car and I know what I'm doing. I never got tempted. Not one time was I tempted because I'm being helpful. I was never, ever tempted, ever. Even when he's drinking it next to me, I still wasn't tempted because I haven't experienced. The obsession's gone. I have no desire, no obsession, no desire. So you could be drinking, smoking next to me, and it doesn't do nothing to me, you know? Back to the reading. Some of us still serve it to our friends, provided they are not alcoholic. We're talking about keeping it in the house. Again, I've already eliminated that. And I want all you to make your safe place in your house. Make your safe place, your home, you know? But some of us think we should not serve alcohol to anyone. That is how I feel. I just don't feel like I should need it in my house at all. I'm alcoholic. It don't belong there. You know, we never, there's that word again, never. It's the second time on that page. We never argue these questions. We never argue these questions. We feel that each family, in the light of their own circumstances, ought to decide for themselves. I think you're going to know, you'll know if you're spiritually fit or not, if you can go somewhere where you need to be spiritually fit. You're going to know if you are. You know what that feels like when you're spiritually fit, you know? And if you're not, then it just says don't go there. We are careful, never. It's the third time that word never. We are careful never to show intolerance. We learned about intolerance all the way in step 4, right? I think it was page 70 or 60. Yeah, page 70 at the bottom. It talked about patience and tolerance, right? So we are careful never to show intolerance or hatred of drinking as an institution. So I'm not going to show intolerance or hatred toward alcohol. Just because I have a problem with it doesn't mean everybody else does. Now, I learned that at an early age because I got a brother. He's 4 years older than me, and he's not alcoholic. He can have a beer or a shot, and he don't want any more. He's like, oh, I feel it. I'm done. You know, I'm like, I laugh at him. I go, what is that even? I don't even know what that even is. You know, how do you even, you know, he always told me, how come you can't drink like me? Why do you drink like that? That's what my brother used to say. Why do you drink like that? And why can't you drink like me? Well, I would always say, I don't know. And he goes, why can't you stop like I can? I don't know. Because I'm just like dad. You know, I never had an answer. I never had an answer for him. But he knew that I drank differently than him. He knew that. And I knew I drank differently than him. So that helped me later on in life when I got sober. You know, that helped me to understand there's a difference between alcoholic drinking and people that are normal, that don't have that. Once they start to drink, it doesn't set off the craving. And not only that, but since they don't get the craving, they're just not going to drink all night long. And then maybe do some cocaine or whatever after that. They're not going to do any of that. They're going to have one or two, is going to start to feel it, and then he's done. Me, I start to feel it, it sets the craving off, and yeah, it's all over, right? But that's the difference between me and him. And it's important to know that difference is because you might come across some of those people working with others, right? That may not have a problem. I talked to a guy, my job as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, If somebody approaches me to be their sponsor, or someone approaches me, I just met somebody online. It was yesterday, and we were talking. We're messaging back and forth because he says he needs a sponsor. But guess what? While I'm messaging with him back and forth, he starts to tell me that he just turned his life over to Jesus and that he goes to Bible study twice a week. So I'm telling you, as a member of AA, I referred him to another 12-step program. I referred him to Celebrate Recovery, which is more Christian-based, which is going to go right along with him going to Bible study and turning his life over to Jesus. All that's going to fit just perfectly. So now, instead of going to AA, he's going to go and check that out. And I said, you let me know how that goes. Because I can still be friends and I can point people where they need to go, where it's better fit. They might think AA is a better fit, and it might not be. It might be something else. So my job is to put them where they need to go. Also, I hope that makes sense to you all, because I know he's going to enjoy that fellowship, because that's what he enjoys going. He's going to enjoy that. And I know he's going to message me and go, dude, this was a great meeting. And I know that's how that's going to be. So, and sometimes people come to me and they don't have an alcohol problem. They might have a drug problem. And so my job is to direct them to the right fellowship. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to sponsor them. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to go. I've been to CA. I've been to AA. I've been to other fellowships. It doesn't matter to me. I'll go to your fellowship, So the whole point is to be helpful, right? All right. Experience. I'm on page 103. Experience shows that such an attitude is not helpful to anyone. Again, it's talking about intolerance and hatred toward drinking. Every new alcoholic looks for the spirit among us. It is immensely relieved when he finds we are not witch burners, right? We're not alcoholic. We're not alcohol haters, is what it's saying, witch burners, right? A spirit, again, there's that word intolerance again. A spirit of intolerance might repel alcoholics whose lives could have been saved. That's how important it is that I got to show that intolerance. Love and tolerance of others is our code, right? Love and tolerance. That's the second time I said intolerance, right? A spirit of intolerance might repel alcoholics whose lives could have been saved had it not been for such stupidity. We would not even do the cause of temperate drinking any good. For not one drinker in 1,000 likes to be told anything about alcohol by one who hates it. Think about that, right? Someday we hope that Alcoholics Anonymous will help the public in a better realization and the gravity of the alcohol problem, but we shall be of little use of our attitude but we shall be of little use if our attitude is one of bitterness and hostility. Well, attitude, right? Drinkers won't stand for it. After all, our problems were of our own making. Bottles were only a symptom. Besides, we have to stop fighting anything and everyone. We have to. Again, you're not going to be successful all the time. That's the reality of it. You're not going to be successful. There will be failures, which means that I work with somebody, they drink again. I feel bad because they drink again. But I know that their sobriety, whether they drink or not, has absolutely nothing to do with me. I don't have that kind of power. It talks about that in the doctor's opinion. Something more than human power is needed. And so I'm just a guide. I will guide you in the right direction. I will help you through the inventory. But God's got to, you got to be in that place where you can be humble enough so God can come in there and God can do that work. I don't do that work. There's nothing that I can do to help you have a spiritual experience. Not only that, but Carl Jung writes about that in the book. He says he could not help Rowan Hazard have an experience. If you read that, basically he says, if you read that, Rowan says, I'm fucked. That's what it says. I don't mean my language again, but that's what it says. He felt like the gates of hell had closed in on him or something like that. He felt screwed. But he did say there are exceptions to the rule. And that's what helped Rowan get sober. And he carried the message to Ebby. Ebby carried it to Bill. And we're all here today. It's about carrying the message. Ebby was 2 months sober when he visited Bill at his house. He was 3 months sober when he visited him at the hospital. I want you to understand, Ebby is like the sponsor. Remember, Bill always said, "Ebby, my sponsor." I want you to think about it. The sponsor visited the sponsee in his house. He laid down the spiritual program that Ebby had used to help him get sober. He laid it down. And then he said, "Bill, the only way this is going to work is you got to be sober." Because the very next page, he went and got sober. He was separated from alcohol for the last time. And you see, he turned his life over to God in the hospital. And then Ebby comes to visit him to do step 4 and 5 to help him have this deep and effective spiritual experience. And it was so deep in the hospital that Bill never drank again. It was so deep in the hospital from that same day that Ebby visited him and took him through whatever process that was at the time. At the end of that process, Bill's laying in the hospital and going, "What about all those other alcoholics? What about all those other hopeless alcoholics?" While he's laying in the hospital, he hadn't even left yet. He had just gone through this process with Ebby in one day. And now he's laying in the hospital and going, "What about all those other hopeless alcoholics that they can have what I have, which is hope?" He's already having a spiritual experience and he's already thinking about others on the same day that he went through that process while he was sitting in the hospital. He's already thinking, "I can't wait to get out. I can't wait to get out of this hospital and start working with people." From that experience, Bill had worked with 50 alcoholics. That's what they say. About 50 in that 6 months from the time he got sober all the way to the time he saw Dr. Bob. Not one of them stayed sober. And he went to Lois and said, "You know what? This thing ain't working." Because he's about to give up. He's 6 months sober. Right before this trip to Akron, he's ready to give up. Not one person staying sober. And Lois says to him, "But Bill, you're sober 6 months." And that's when it dawned on Bill that when he works with others, he stays sober. When I work with another alcoholic, I stay sober. I do. Now, whether they stay sober or not has nothing to do with me. It has a lot to do with God. I'm just put myself in that position to be helpful to them, to help guide them. There's going to be failures, but there's going to be successes, and the successes are going to outweigh the failures. I've had people die. I've had people die. I've had people I've sponsored for years, and they get this thing, and they're on fire, and then they meet a girl, and then, yep. I mean, we've all seen it. I hope, I've just seen it. So he relapses. He gets with this girl. I'm like, "Dude, you shouldn't get with her. Like, she's not the." And he goes, "Screw you. You can't tell me who I can be with, whatever." And within a couple months, he's relapsed and he never comes back. He dies. He never comes back. He dies at 39 years old. I'm a pallbearer at his funeral. I had to go buy a suit and a tie for the first time in my life. I had to go buy a suit and a tie. And not only this, but his dad said, "I want you to be a pallbearer and I want you to read a eulogy because you're a sponsor." I don't even know what a eulogy is. I have no clue. I got to do all this stuff for the first time in my whole life. And I'm walking through it sober. I'm walking through it sober. And you know what? I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to go and hide. But guess what? This ain't about me. Not only that, but his dad asked me. He didn't ask anybody else. His dad asked me. So I need to show up. I need to show up, not withdraw. I need to show up in life. I need to show up. I need to show up sober. And I need to do what I need to do what I'm asked to do. And that's what I did. And not only that, but I was one of the pallbearers carrying his cactus, carrying his casket. I wasn't quite tongue tied. I knew there was 6 pallbearers. Every single one of them I knew personally, and I sponsored 5 of them. I'm going to tell you, one of those guys was a guy named Chris. He's from Denver, Colorado. Sean is going to meet him in Canada at the International. Chris has 26 years of sobriety. Again, he was a new guy I worked with. Chris was 22 years old when he got sober. Brian was 24. I, I, but what I want to tell you is you all know some of my sponsor lineage. Mark was my sponsor. Mark was older than me. I'm sober. I'm in my 20s. Mark did not get sober in his 20s. He got sober in his 30s. There's a difference there. I'm in my 20s, right? I want to chase, well, first I was married and then I got divorced and then I wanted to chase women, And so it was kind of one of those things where I had to figure this out, right? Dating and all this stuff in sobriety and figure all this out. But my sponsor said, if I'm not spiritually fit, then I shouldn't be in a relationship. I mean, that is, yeah, you know, if I'm not spiritually fit, then what am I doing in a relationship? What am I? She's going to be my prisoner. You know, if I'm not spiritually fit, I mean, I take hostages. You know, if I'm not spiritually fit. When I'm spiritually fit, man, everything goes smoothly if I just get out of the way. You know, um, I kind of forgot where I was going with my story though. Sometimes it happened twice already. I lost my train of thought. I just hate when it happens, but it's an old person thing, I guess, and it's even in the recording too. I don't care today. Like I don't care to. I like to show you that I'm human. I'd like to show you that. I'd like to show you I make mistakes. I forget things. I make mistakes. So don't put me up. People have a tendency to put me up here. Don't never put me on a pedestal. And I'm looking you all eyeball to eyeball. I was just saying the same thing at the meeting today. You know, we're all at this meeting, and I probably had the most sobriety. And I was talking about, yeah, someone that's like got 1 day, and then someone's got. I said, we're all the same. I'm not higher than anybody else. I'm sitting at the table. I'm looking at everybody eyeball to eyeball. We're all the same. You know, the only difference is I got experience. That's it. Just experience. You know, again, you're gonna have failures. You're gonna have more failures than you'll have successes. And what I mean by failures is just somebody's just not gonna work with you. Someone's not gonna work with you, or he starts to work and then they don't finish it, or they don't want to go any further. I'm gonna tell you, when I get people like that, I just go grab somebody else. You know, I just grab somebody else. If you got someone that's not willing to do the work, you just go work with somebody else. You just move on. And then when they're ready, they'll let you know. And that's kind of how I do it. You know, um, I have different formats. I know I posted in one of those chats where I posted all these different big book workshop formats. Now I'm going to tell you, a lot of them I go through myself because I'm looking for the golden nugget. I'm looking for these little nuggets in these other formats that I put into mine. Not only that, but sometimes you might find a little nugget that you're going to have a spiritual experience over. You're going to go, oh, wow, I never looked at it that way. Because sometimes people look at things from a different angle. Not everybody works the steps the same way I do. You know, not everybody does this the same way that I do. So I like to look at what everybody else is doing, what other people are doing, because I can learn from that. You know, I can always learn from something. So I take what I know, I put it aside, and I go sit in somebody else's big book workshop, and I have an open mind, and I'm taking notes, and I'm highlighting, and I'm doing the same thing that you're all doing when I'm doing it. And not only that, but you've all have seen me do this workshop where I'm like, wait a second, I get my highlighter and I get my pen, and you see me doing it because I'm having an experience, and it could be just with one word. It could be just one word. Again, the only way to learn how sponsorship is to sponsor. You know, remember in the beginning, I said, how do you learn how to swim? My dad threw me in the water. I said, don't drown. You know, and you learn how to do the doggy paddle because you're scared and you think you're going to drown and you're doing the doggy paddle and then you figure it out, then you're relaxed and you're okay. And now you can be taught how to swim, right? But the only way to know how is to jump in. The only way to know how to sponsor someone, jump in. You can't go wrong when you start with the doctor's opinion. Start with the doctor's opinion. Sometimes I have them read it on their own and I'll ask them questions after, or I'll send them questions so I know they read it. I have lots of assignments like that. You know, sometimes they might struggle with that. Some people don't like that. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll read it to them, just like I do like in a workshop. You know, it's just everybody's a little different. Some people learn. Everybody learns a little different. As a sponsor, you're going to have to learn to adapt to whatever their capability is. Because I know when I come in here and I'm sick, my capability of understanding something is very limited. It is. And that's why I needed to be taken through the steps in 1 day as quick as possible. In 4 1-hour sessions, I went through it so quick. I had an experience. And my experience wasn't necessarily with step 4, it was with step 11, with doing that written guidance with the two-way prayer. That completely just changed my life. And then I was able to go back and expand on my inventory. Now that I'm tapping into that God power, I can go back into my inventory because now I'm not afraid because God's with me. Before that, I was afraid. I hope that makes sense. But once God came into my life and I started practicing prayer and meditation that my sponsor got me into from day one, because he pointed out there's only one solution. Well, I give you two alternatives, right? Either just go on to the bitter end, living in the unconscious state of being, or I'm going to accept spiritual help. And once I accept spiritual help, that means I got to be disciplined with morning meditation and two-way prayer. I got to do it. And sometimes I just get words and I get little bits and pieces because I'm being blocked. That's why it's important to do that inventory, share it with somebody, remove the blocks in step 6 and 7. So then I can start to have a direct power into to God's power. I can plug right into God's power that can flow through me and move me. You all know when that power's flowing through me, you all know that power's flowing through me. You all see it. You all feel that in my words. You all know. So if it can flow through you too. You just got to be open to that, you know? Again, only way for step 12. Haven't had experience. Haven't had a spiritual experience of the first 11 steps. Step 12 is carrying the message of the first 11 steps. That's your 12th step. Now, I'm going to tell you something. How do I know when someone's completed their steps? And I know I've gone 90 minutes. I'm about to wrap it up now. How do you know when someone's completed the 12 steps? I'm going to tell you how I know when someone's completed the 12 steps is when they successfully carry this message to another alcoholic and they stay sober. That's when you successfully have completed it, because now you have successfully passed this on to another alcoholic. That's part of step 12. So many people could miss that, because that's when you know that you've completed the steps, is when you've carried it successfully to another alcoholic and they're sober. That's when you've completed step 12, not until that point. And then what do? You go back to step 1 and you find another newcomer and you do it all over again. My second sponsor, Paul Martin, talked about going through the steps again and 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 again. And he wrote about this in the AA Grapevine, which is our meeting in print. He was the most successful writer of the AA Grapevine of that time. He's got more articles than you can probably think of, And so I'm going to start collecting all those articles and start compiling together the information, because I'm going to get a Grapevine subscription. And, again, don't withdraw. Don't withdraw. Get out into life. Go to those sober dances. Go to those conventions. Experience that. Experience those things. You know what? You're going to have a good time. If sobriety was about being miserable and being unhappy, I wouldn't want it. It's about being happy, joyous, and free. And you know what? And getting out of my shell, breaking out of my shell, right? And being free. To me, that was the real freedom of being free, was finally dancing. And nobody even cared if I danced like Steve Urkel. Nobody cared at all. To me, that was the total freedom. For real, though. I just didn't care about what anybody thought anymore. And that can happen to all of you. But just go. Just go. Be a part of that life. Don't withdraw. I just think that's great in that step 12. Don't withdraw. Be a part of life. Go out and do things. Socialize, right? Do things, again, I've gone to a lot of concerts and I don't go alone. I always bring other people from AA with me. I might have the longest sobriety and they always come to me, but I don't go alone. I never go alone when I'm anywhere. I'm always with another alcoholic or somebody else, another fellowship, recovery, or whatever. Somebody's got my back. Whenever I go anywhere, someone's got my back. Not that I need it, but someone's got my back and I got theirs. Never go to a place like that by yourself. If there's a place with liquor, never go alone, and never go on a 12-step call by yourself. Bill and Bob, they 12-step Bill D. I want you to think about that. Now, we talked about Ebby being sober 2 months, going to visit Bob. He was 3 months when he visited him at the hospital. Ebby's still sober. He visited him at the hospital in December. He's sober 3 months. Takes him through that process. Bill's sober 6 months when he goes to Dr. Bob. Do you know how sober Dr. Bob was when he went to Bill D, alcoholic number 3? Like a week or 2 at the absolute most, because Bill D got sober in June 1935, the same month that Dr. Bob did. Now, Bill leaves. Bill leaves and goes back to New York. You got Dr. Bob and you got Bill D. And how long are they sober by the time Bill leaves? Maybe a couple months. Maybe Bob and Bill. Maybe a couple months. A couple months. A couple months. And that's how AA started. They're sober a couple months, Bill and Bob, and they're working with new people. A couple months. That's what it used to take to get through this process of these 12 steps in a couple months. It mentions that in Appendix 2, Spiritual Experience. A couple months. That's all it should take. I'm going to say on average, it takes me 6 weeks to get someone through this process. I could take someone through in a day. But on average, we're doing in-depth, in-depth is about 6 weeks. 2 months tops to get through this. How well? I'm sick. I need the medicine. I need all the medicine right now. I need it as fast as you can administer it to me because I'm sick and I want to get well. That's how you have to look at it when you're working with somebody. They need it as soon as possible. Now, I've gone back to, I start sponsoring a little differently. I've gone back to more, I do more back to basics in the first 3 steps. We can always go back and go more in depth. Once I get into step 4 is just, I'm going to start on page 58 and we're going to go through those 3 decisions we got to make. And then we're just going to get right into step 4. And the quicker I get you to step 4, the quicker I get you to step 5, the quicker you're going to have an experience that could potentially keep you sober for the rest of your life. That's why that step 4 has to be deep and effective. That step 4 has to be deep and effective. Now, we can always go back and rework step 1, step 2, step 3, because I have gone back. But when I'm working with somebody new, we're up against mental obsession. This is what you're up against. That's what you're up against. When you're working with somebody, if he's brand new, he's sober a day or 2, you're up against that mental obsession, and he needs, or she, needs this as soon as possible before the obsession shows up. If the obsession shows up, all bets are off. They got no effective defense against the first drink. As soon as the obsession shows up, they're drinking. That's why we got to administer as soon as possible. Get them through this as soon as we can. A lot of times, I'll discuss on the phone. I'll just discuss steps 1 and 2. There's no solution in step 1. I want to know what the problem is. I want you to tell me mental obsession, physical allergy, those kind of things, lack of control. Those are the things I'm looking for. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about step 1, and those are the things I'm looking for. Once you understand the problem, we're out of step 1. We need to get into 2. We need to get into 2 as quick as we need to get off of 1 and into 2 as soon as possible because 2 is the solution. To be empowered, if my problem's lack of power, then the solution is going to be to be empowered by something. To be empowered by it. At this point, I would, because at this point I'm already discussing, if they believe in God, we're talking about step 2. So at this point, this is when I introduce prayer and meditation. This is at this point in step 2. If they already have some sort of belief, I get them in the prayer and meditation, nightly review, morning meditation, right at step 2. Right at step 2. Now, I know they're not going to get a lot because they got a lot of blocks, okay, at that moment. So they're going to get a couple of words. They're just going to get whatever they're going to get until we do step 5. Once we do step 5, then that opens that channel wide open, opens the channel. And I can show you, even Sean can show you the things that he did in the beginning where he was just getting words and now he's getting prayers. To me, that blows my mind. I was getting words and now I'm getting a prayer that's from God to me. That just blows my mind, I just want to read one more thing before I wrap it up here. I'm going to read page 164. It's the middle of the page 164. It says our book. Oh, no. No. Hold on. I'm going to read something else here. If I can find it. Give me a second. Yes. It's going to say, I'm going to read the bottom of page 162. Last line. Thus we grow, and so can you. Though you be but one man with this book in your hand, just one person with this book in his hand, we believe and hope it contains all you will need to begin. You're alone with the book. It's going to be everything you need to begin. We know what you're thinking. You're saying to yourself, and I'm telling you, this is what I felt when it was my turn to go sponsor. I'm jittery and alone. I can't do that. But you can. You forget that you have just now tapped a source of power. We're talking about God's power, much greater than yourself. To duplicate with such backing, what we have accomplished is only a matter of willingness, patience, and labor. And I'm going to stop there. Talking about tapping into this power, right? Just lost my, here it is. I lost my phone holder. Okay. So what I wanted to read was that you be but one person with the book in your hand, and you're scared, and you're like, oh, but you can't screw them up any more than they've already screwed them up. And if you're going to them with a pure heart, you can't go wrong. You can never go wrong. Okay. On page 164, in the middle of the book, it says our book is meant to be subjective only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly, underline that word constantly, disclose more to you and to us. So God's going to be constantly disclosing more to you. Ask him, ask God in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. Again, there's that word sick, right? The answer will come if your own house is in order. So if your own house is in order, you're going to get the answer. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with God is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact to us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to our fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past and give freely of what you find. And join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. And you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road to happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. That's how I like to end that. Again, let's just have a moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic. Or might not be alcoholic, could be addict, right? Someone you know that's sick and suffering. Do you know someone that's sick and suffering? If you do, it might be time to reach out to them. It might be time to reach out to them. Let's take a moment and reflect. I want you to think of somebody, one person that you can reach out to. I want you to think of one person, just one person you can send a message to, get them to come to a meeting, do some 12-step work. I want you to take a moment. I want you to think about that person. All right. For those that want to join me in the Serenity Prayer, you're welcome to unmute yourself. God,
God,
grant me the
grant me the
serenity
serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
Amen.